Fish Stripes Live, episode number, maybe the fifth or sixth live stream that we've done here on Twitter, on YouTube, on Periscope, no, on Twitch. I think we have like 5 Twitch subscribers, so they may be coming in here too. Highly anticipated series between the Marlins and the Braves, 4 games between arguably the Marlins' biggest rival, definitely the Marlins' biggest rival at the moment. I guess that depends on your definition. But we got Ethan Badowski and we have Alex Carver with us to help break down this very pivotal series that the Marlins are dealing with right here. And we already have my guy Alex Contreras weighing in. He's always so confident, more so than anybody else.
Confident in the Marlins. Yeah, exactly. Never lacks in confidence.
Well, why don't we just start with the pregame stuff? All the updates that got out. Some of them, most of them encouraging. One of them not so encouraging with Jorge Alfaro getting scratched for the second straight day. But Ethan, why don't you just give a rundown on all those prospects that are on the mend?
Okay, so there were 3 announcements made by the Marlins today. The first one was that Jorge Guzman has been throwing bullpens without any issue in Jupiter. George Guzman, excuse me, I forgot he changed a couple years back. George Guzman has been throwing bullpens in Jupiter with no issue. He's scheduled to throw a live session in the next couple days. And then from there, I imagine at the alternate training site, it'll go from 2 innings to 3 innings to 4 innings to 5 innings, getting him built up. So you could see him ready to go, built up in about a month or so. That's about this is about the progression that starters were going through in spring training. So might need about a month or so for Guzman. And then Sixto is going through rehab exercises and has been throwing from 45 feet without any issues. So that's certainly good that the without any issue part, he continues rehabbing. And then Eddie Cabrera, this is the one that got me a little excited, is throwing from 75 feet because we didn't really have any timetable on him. It seemed like he was going to be shut down for a while, but he's back throwing from 75 feet, no issues so far, which is very encouraging. He was dealing with a nerve issue in his bicep, I believe, which sounded very concerning to me. But as far as Sixto and Eddie go, somebody asked me to name a timeline. I don't really have one. Maybe June would be is the optimistic thought there that they could be pitching around June. But, they got to get worked up to throwing, and then they've got to throw a bullpen, and then they've got to throw another, maybe another bullpen. Then they've got to throw a live BP. Then they've got to do 2, 3, 4, get back built up. So the problem with pitcher injuries, this is what Donnie talked about when Eliezer went down, is that 10 days down can turn into a month, 2 months on the disabled list. Sixto and Eddie, it's going to be a little bit before we see them. But on Eliezer, I forgot to ask, but no update on him. But I'll have to see in the coming days if they give an update on him. That's some positive development, certainly, for the Marlins in the pitching aspect of their injury list.
Yeah, maybe it's just my end, but Ethan, you're coming in kind of choppy here. I don't know if it's the same with Alex or.
Yeah, he is. He's you got a little. Yeah, you're a little choppy, but we can understand you. But you're just we're breaking up a little. But
That's weird.
Well, we're gonna be chilling on here for almost an hour. Maybe you want to just try resetting I think it might be an internet problem, not so much as the mic problem. Might be the.
Let me hop out and I'll hop back in.
Yeah. But we still got Alex here, and it's an early birthday present for Edward Cabrera a little bit, turning 23 tomorrow. So some good news that he's actually progressing a little bit. The hope was that we'd see him a little bit in the majors at the end of last season, and the concern very recently was that all of a sudden this year was entirely in doubt. So it's encouraging that he's making some progress, right? Because he doesn't really need all that much fine tuning until he's actually major league ready.
Yeah, it's nice to have somewhat of a clarification because we haven't heard his name since he went down with the injury, right? Like they haven't said anything. So to finally have something from the team on him, and Ethan said it before he dropped out. I think he's coming back, but he said it that this progression is a while. They go from 100 feet to 75 feet, 45 feet. Then they have to throw live, maybe a couple, then bullpens, and then they can finally, think about activating them. So it's an arduous process. It's not just something that these guys are just going to come back from immediately. Sixto, I think, would be a little bit ahead of Edward Cabrera, just based off the fact that I think they said Sixto's throwing at 45, and Edward, I think they said is throwing at either 100 or 75. I don't know, one of those two. So yeah, Sixto, I would say, is a little bit farther ahead than Edward, but the hope is that at least both of them can come back for the second half. I think June, as Ethan said, for Sixto is probably right. I think you'd be pushing Edward to see him before June. So hopefully July, and hopefully at least by the end of the year for him.
Yeah. And I mean, in the meantime, on this major league roster, really overall on the position player side, they've been pretty fortunate on the injury front, with the exception of Jorge Alfaro now, where the last game he played was April 6th. And just as we're recording this, we're getting some BP footage from Jordan McPherson on the scene in Atlanta. So the fact that Alfaro is taking part in that, if he's able to take BP, and we know that he was in the original lineup before being scratched, and actually he was in the original lineup back-to-back days before being scratched, then he's close, it seems like. But this was a really complicated situation that was kind of hovering over the team the last few days as to whether to put him on the IL and what exactly they would do in that situation. And because they're in a stretch of the schedule where they're playing 9 games in 9 days, and you need more than one catcher to get through that, especially when your only healthy catcher is Chad Wallach. And no offense to Chad, but you need a little bit more. He's not going to carry the team. He's not Yadier Molina back there.
The other thing is, and am I coming in better now?
Yeah, you're perfect now.
Okay, cool. The other thing is that with the unfortunate optioning of Lewis Brinson that the Marlins had to go through because of the game yesterday, they're down to 3 bench bats right now. And they're going to be down to 3 bench bats for 9 days because they have to wait at least 10 days before they can call Brinson up. So that just makes it all the more complicated for the Marlins right now. But on the Alfaro front, Donnie did say today that he would feel okay if he had to put him in an emergency situation. So he's capable of being in a game. They just kind of want him to be 100%. They don't want him being 75, 80, 90% in case something, goes awry. So they're looking at that Thursday game as maybe Wallach will catch these next 2 nights, and then Alfaro would get the quick turnaround for the day game. That's the – or what – wait, do they have a – I don't know how the scheduling works in this series. Is it a 4-game series? I guess
it's 4 games, and the final one is the day game.
So I guess Donnie thought about, the day game for Alfaro or for Wallach. They want to, rotate there. So the Marlins have a decision on their hands, but it sounds like Jorge is going to be all right. So the shortage on the bench to me is the bigger concern than who's playing catcher right now.
Yeah, that's right. And in the National League with no designated hitter, it's very hard to manage your way through a Major League Baseball game with 3 bench players when you have pitching changes and you need pinch hitters for pitchers. I mean, unless Sandy goes 8 or 7, which he's perfectly capable of. So I guess you have some comfort there today with him going and then Pablo tomorrow, I think, right? But yeah, it's very hard to manage your way through a Major League National League Baseball game with 3 bench players. So I actually think, just judging by what Donnie said, that, he would have been comfortable today putting him in a game. He just wanted to give him an extra day. He's looking at maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. I think it's possible, especially if Sandy, let's hope not, but if Sandy somehow has, a short start, then I definitely think you'll see Jorge Alfaro come off the bench to pinch hit. So, I think we could see him tonight. I think we'll probably see him either tomorrow or the next day, as Ethan said. So, the news is encouraging there. It doesn't sound like he's going to need the DL, which exactly. I was kind of hoping for the Sandy combo, but I guess that's not going to happen. But, I think we'll see Sandy Leon eventually anyways, so we'll see.
Well, let's talk about Big Sandy, primetime Sandy, top of the rotation Sandy. Ooh, it's only been 2 starts in the regular season, but that's on the heels of 5 or 6 great starts in spring training, which is on the heels of 7 or 8 great starts last season. That all of a sudden he has a pretty substantial body of work as a elite pitcher, and especially these first 2 regular season outings, one against the Rays and one against the Cardinals. Not elite offenses, but not terrible either. So those were decent tests for him, and he passed both of them with flying colors, both times working, I think, 6 innings apiece. And I mean, the one difference in him, and this goes to spring training, is how he's missing bats all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I have a video that I put up on our YouTube channel about Sandy and also about Brian Anderson, who we might get into later, about you could say a lot of positives about Sandy early in his Marlins career, even when he was a quote-unquote all-star. It's just that the ceiling is pretty limited on how effective you're going to be start after start if you're not missing bats. And all of a sudden, this is something that he's doing at a special level. And when he's throwing strikes and he's missing bats and he's as durable as we know that he is, then you can really start dreaming about this guy being just better than anybody could have originally thought. He's on another level right now. His fastball velo averaging like 97 on his fastball, averaging 97 on his fastball so far this season. The progress he's made with his changeup. This is his biggest test yet against the Braves. We'll get into that a little later too, where the Braves aren't off to the best of starts offensively. But this could be a pretty special night for him and for people to actually take notice of what he's doing.
Well, yeah. Sorry, Alex. Sandy seems to be the guy, like he seems to kind of rise to the big occasion. You know, he seems to have that mindset from talking to him that he's not going to back down from any challenge. And the Braves are the greatest challenge in the division right now. They are the measuring stick. They're the reigning division champions. You know, some people weren't picking them in the division this year, but they're the favorite until somebody unseats them. So this is certainly a measuring stick for the Marlins. This is a measuring stick for Sandy. And like you said, Eli, it's certainly the biggest test that he's faced so far. This is a great lineup up and down. One of the better lineups in the league. They've been struggling so far, but I mean, when you're talking about Freeman and Ozuna and Darno and Acuna, obviously Albies, Swanson, these guys can hit up and down the lineup, and so it's a real challenge for Sandy tonight. But he certainly is going to rise up to it. He's not going to back down from anybody. He's not going to back down from Acuna, that's for sure. So expect more of the same from Sandy tonight. We know what has been his success since he started having a lot of success in June of 2019, which is just sinker, and the slider is starting to pick up whiffs, and his location is a lot better going up in the zone, going down in the zone. He's been electric. He's been fantastic. And, when he was coming up, first got traded into the Marlins organization, there was the potential ace label given to him. It put a lot of people said, well, he can't locate well enough to be an ace. He's going to be a 2, maybe a 3. Maybe he has bullpen in his future because he just can't locate very well. But he's turned that around completely. This is not a bullpen guy. This is a certified ace. His tunneling is fantastic. The way he, uses that third base side of the bag. So the guy is electric. He's been electric this year. Certainly very excited to see how he matches up against this Braves lineup tonight, and how he rises to the challenge.
Yeah, perfectly said there. The only thing I would have to add is I was looking at the numbers. I remember all 3 of his starts against the Braves team, or the 3 in Atlanta, I should say. The 2 in the regular season that he's had at Truist Park, really good. I think regular season ERA in Atlanta is like 1.6 or something very Sandy-esque. But I mean, I know the Marlins say they're moving on from last year, but game 1 of that division series maybe got knocked around a little, right? Yeah. What was it? 6 innings, 5 runs, I think, something like that. So it'd be interesting to find out, after his outing. Hopefully he does well. If he kind of had that in the back of his mind going after these guys again after getting hit around a little bit there in the playoffs last year by them. So we all know what happened with that series. That kind of set the tone for it. So I definitely think Sandy's a better pitcher than he was then. That's crazy to say because he was really good then, but now he's even better with the addition of the changeup, which we talked about. So it's going to be a great changeup. Yeah, it's going to be a great matchup tonight. We'll see what happens against these bats. Either the Braves are going to get it going against him, or he's going to continue to dominate. So we'll see.
And he did struggle in that start, but he kind of struggled early, and then he just kind of settled in. He got Acuna, he let up the home run to Acuna, but then he got Acuna swinging. I think he struck out Acuna the next 2 or 3 times he faced him. So, there was that whole big deal about him hitting him or whatever, and I just want that all to go to the wayside. the Marlins the plan on Acuna is to pitch him in, and the Marlins are going to pitch him in, and sometimes one's going to run in and hit him. And it just kind of how it happens. The Marlins see this guy a lot. They know how to pitch him. And look, he's owned the Marlins. It's going to be a storyline every time he faces the Marlins, right? That, there's history, but Ureña's not on the roster anymore. We don't have to deal with that nonsense. We should just put that to the side. I'm done with plunking guys. Mattingly today, basically threw that all to the side, and he threw it all to the side with the Conforto stuff. The Marlins don't throw at guys. This isn't a team that throws at guys. That's not the organization that this team is. So just let that all go to the wayside. Sandy's going to try and go out and just go toe for toe with this really good lineup, and he's up for the challenge. I'm certain of it. I'm not saying he's going to go and shut them down. There, it's hard to predict anybody shutting down this a talented lineup, a lineup as talented as this one. But Sandy's up to the task for sure. I'm very excited to. I love when Sandy pitches. It's very exciting to watch him pitch. So.
Yeah, and the last for me, sorry, Eli. The last thing for me on Alcantara. Ethan, you mentioned it. It makes a much bigger statement than rather than going out and hitting a guy. I think the Marlins are well past the Acuna situation. But in terms of the Conforto situation, the Marlins made a much bigger statement by going out and striking him out 3 times and setting him down via a weak ground ball than to go out and hit him. So, yeah, definitely agree. I think the Marlins are past all that stuff that went on with Acuna. I think this is just going to be a good game with no drama, just a good baseball game.
People know how special Acuna is, but right now he's on a totally different level. I mean, he's leading National League in weighted runs created plus, in hits, in OPS.
He's got one WAR already in 9 games. He's already at 1 WAR, I saw.
I think last night he hit a 450-foot home run, something like that. He's locked in right now. So anything they do to just slow him down a little, not even just neutralize him entirely, but just keep him in the ballpark, that's going to be small victory and give them a good chance to win. And really, one of the weak links in their lineup right now is our old friend Marcelo Zuna. He is really feeling it. He finally got paid. Congrats to him on finally getting, I think, 4-year deal, $64 million and $65 million, something like that, with a team option on the end. So that's good for him. He's an easy guy to root for. But at this moment, I think his WRC plus is 6. It's a single-digit number, which is not what you want. He's no extra base hits for him to this point in the season, yet he's still hitting in the middle of the lineup. I mean, that shows that they don't have any reason to believe that this is a lingering issue or anything to be concerned about yet. He's still in his usual spot in the lineup. And one of the big storylines of the Braves right now actually has nothing to do with the Marlins. It has to do with the ending of Sunday night's game, where they lose on that absurd umpiring mistake that was right on par with what the Marlins were dealing with in terms of incompetence and umpiring. A play that they actually went to review and they actually could have overturned and didn't do it for one reason. I'll just take a note. I'm not immersed in Braves Twitter or Phillies Twitter. My time spent up. I don't know how many people are. I'm not sure how many people are actually talking about Ozuna's role in that play, and the fact that it was a bang play at the plate, and upon further review, it should have been overturned. The only reason why it was close is because they were running on Ozuna's arm. This is a shallow fly ball to left field, and it takes I think it's 2 hops just to get it to the plate for him. And it's
if that's a good throw, he's fried, and it's not even a close play. Of course, we can talk about this forever, just like we could have talked about the Conforto hit by pitch forever, right? That he should have been out, but put a better throw on. 1, 2. So close. From that, when I first saw it, I was like, wait, does his toe kind of bounce back and hit the plate? That's a very, very close play. But it didn't have to. And how good are those uniforms, by the way? Those are some good uniforms. We're going to have to face those all series, I think. But those are
I haven't checked that. Yeah, we need to. I'm not sure how often. I guess they are wearing them all week, right?
Yeah, Kelly Sacco. On the press conference today mentioned that it's a tribute to Hank Aaron and Phil Niekro, who both passed away in the offseason. And Donnie actually said that he, when he was a kid, had one of those Braves helmets with the white front or whatever, and he was kind of raving about the Braves uniforms. They look really nice, but Donnie was wearing blue in the press conference today, which was very interesting to me. I was like, we got to get some blue in there. Maybe we would finally be able to beat the Braves. if we wore the blues.
By the way, just to point it out, because we talked about Ozuna's arm or lack thereof, 65 games started in right field for the Marlins in his Marlins career. So just goes to show the state of that outfield. His arm's never been good. But yeah, I think Eli just mentioned that. I think the Braves may have a little bit of extra, incentive behind them because of what they're doing in this homestand, honoring, of course, Hank Aaron and Phil Niekro. Great baseball guys, great members of that organization. Of course, you hear Duvall talk about them. He had got to meet Hank Aaron in his Braves career, and then Donnie talk about facing Phil Niekro. Daniel Alvarez asked that question, what is like facing him? So yeah, maybe some added incentive for the Braves in these awesome uniforms. I don't say too much is awesome about the Braves, but those uniforms are awesome. So yeah, it's going to be tough to beat this team in this whole series, not just this game. So starts tonight.
It was very interesting to hear Donnie talk about Phil Niekro just while we're on the subject, that he was one of the teammates he was closest with. And he said he was Nuxie, is what he called him. And they actually had a commercial together. I tweeted out the commercial. It's a nice little Coke commercial. Commercials were way better back then. But anyway, it seemed like he had a really good relationship with Phil Niekro right until the very end. He said he kept in touch with him till the very end. And so I'm sure it'll mean something for Donnie as well. But looking at this Braves lineup, I mean, it doesn't really look full strength to me based on Darnell's not going. But who is this pitcher, Huascar Inoa? I have not heard of him before.
Yeah, well, we'll get the correct pronunciation on the broadcast, I'm sure. He's clearly on their number 5 guy, but he, from what I've gathered, he had an extremely impressive spring training. He reworked his breaking ball, and he's getting a lot more swings and misses on it. It's a small sample to go off of. They did face him once last year, I remember, and I think he wasn't like fully stretched out to start, but I do remember him like it was either like 4 scoreless innings or like 1 run in 4 innings against the Marlins last year. So there was one appearance, and I didn't see anything all that notable from him. But like I said, it was this past spring training that apparently he's elevated his game a little bit. It's some tough luck for the Braves. If you remember early on last year, they lost Mike Soroka to an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like their emerging ace just a few months ago, like just at the time of that injury.
No, kid's a stud for sure.
And now he's had some setbacks with that, where I don't think he even has a specific timeline to return, where it'll be pretty deep into the season before he gets back. And yet the rotation is still in pretty good shape, because everyone else outside of Yanoa, you get Max Fried tomorrow, and Max Fried was either a Cy Young finalist or right outside the Cy Young finalist last year. He was great, big breakout year. They got Charlie Morton, who at some point is going to fall off a cliff, and he's coming off a shaky year. But, I mean, for the most part, he's been very impressive for this whole renaissance that he's had the last 5 years or so. And then they got Ian Anderson in the finale.
Another
Ian
stud.
Anderson being a guy that, who has surpassed kind of everybody's expectations with that signature changeup that he has. That's very unique pitch in how he throws it. And he gave the Marlins some trouble last year. There was that one particular game I remember, I think it was on Labor Day against him, where they got some I might be having a mix up. Maybe that was the game that he got injured. I think he got injured in one of the games as well that he faced him last year. But he's going to be a problem in the division for a long time, because he just debuted last year, under control for another 6 years. So on Thursday, that's the guy to worry about. But, I mean, that's going to be, now that I think about it, with Trevor is lined up to go that day too. So Trevor Rogers versus Ian Anderson.
That's a great that's a great matchup of young stars. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to Sandy or to Pablo, but I think that's the one that I'm most excited for, just because both of them are still relatively new on the scene and yet have been performing so well so early in their careers. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Well, while we're on the subject of starters, Fried, I have him on my fantasy team last year. This year, so I know what he's done so far. He's got 2 starts. He was really good on opening day. And then he was really terrible he got me -10 fantasy points in his second start against the Nationals. That was that game where the Nats and Braves were like taking BP in the first inning, basically. And it knocked both starters out early. And then on Inoa, I just texted my buddy who's a Braves fan. He started a doubleheader last week, pitched only 4 innings. He's a bullpen guy, so it seems like this will kind of be a bullpen game for the Braves unless he goes out there and pitches really efficiently and shuts the Marlins down. But you're looking at maybe 3-4 innings from the guy today, and then we have to face the Braves bullpen, who, if I remember correctly, last year was really, really good. the Marlins kind of had fits with them in some of the series that we played them last year. And it feels like we never stopped playing them last year. And it feels like we never stopped. And maybe it's because they're so damn good that it just feels like we never, can get away from these guys. But there's some really good pitching matchups in this series. There will be good pitching matchups when these two teams play each other because the strengths of these two organizations are up, are on the bump. So Fried, Morton, Anderson, is Kyle Wright up this year? Has he been pitching this year, or is he?
At this very moment, I don't think he's up. He's probably at their alternate site. Yeah.
So who's the other starter that we're avoiding? But
last night was Drew Smiley.
Oh, Drew
Smiley. They signed in free agency. Yeah.
So young pitching is what it's all about with these two organizations. So tomorrow, Pablo and Fried will be a great matchup, and then like you talked about it, Eli. That Anderson and Rogers is just staring you in the face as that could be a really, really good pitching matchup for sure.
Yeah, I think the matchup that you didn't mention, Ethan, is the biggest game of the series for me. Honestly, it's the Nick Neidert and Charlie Morton matchup, I believe it is, for the Braves. So coming off of his first start where he kind of struggled and walked a bunch of guys. I think he had 5 walks. We talked about it that day. I believe Eli had the bend but not break stuff. So to come out of that start, and now he's got to try to, build off of it and maybe, do a little bit better. And now he's got to go into Atlanta and face the Atlanta Braves. So I think that's a really big spot for Nick Neidert.
Oh, huge.
I think if he can do well in that start, then it's going to really catapult him to better things. So, hopefully he can come out and have a good outing. I'm hoping for at least 5 innings out of him in that start, keep us in the game. He did last time, yes, but you want to see those control and command issues that he had a little bit come back down. So against the Braves, it's going to be tough. So I think that's a big matchup for Nick.
My green screen is spazzing out. I'm trying to correct it, but I'll just have to live with it. I'm doing just fine here, though.
It'll definitely be a big test for Neidert to see him. He handled the Mets lineup pretty well, but that's one beast, and the Braves lineup is another beast as well. It'll certainly be good, as it will be for everybody. I'm going to keep saying this term measuring stick throughout this series and throughout the season when we play the Braves. This is a team that you play 18, 19 times a year. Defending division champions, they've had your number recently, that's for sure, especially that guy Acuna. So this is a very good time for the Marlins, who are playing better than their record suggests, and they're certainly feeling better than their record suggests they should be feeling right now. This is a big series to say, hey, we can take 2. I wouldn't say it's likely that they take 3 or 4, but if they can get a couple games from this series, that would be really nice for the Marlins and a really nice confidence boost as the schedule kind of eases up. You get San Francisco coming to town, and you get them again soon, so the schedule kind of eases up. But it's been a gauntlet out of the gate, certainly. 4 good teams out of the gate: the Rays, the Cardinals, the Mets, and now heading into this Braves series, you're facing 4 good teams, 4 good lineups, and a lot of pitching certainly here in this series that you're going to see with the Braves. So plenty of intriguing matchups, plenty of intriguing storylines as well, for sure. And the one we haven't even talked about is that these two teams played each other in the playoffs last year, and so we know there's even more bad blood now, between these two teams for sure. But I asked Aggie about it today, and he said they're just kind of focused on their goal. They're not really worried about, there's not really a ton of extra meaning, but the Marlins know the team that's on the other side. He said this: we know the team that we're facing. We know how good they are. And we know that they're they're the top of the division. They're the measuring stick, that's the term Donnie used. And we know how we have to play. We got to give our best and come out and really put in our best efforts in order to beat this team. And the Marlins are going to need it for sure.
Every year since this rebuild started, the season series and the regular season has been pretty lopsided. And then last year it was a little bit more even, but of course, as you mentioned, in the playoffs, that sweep was relatively convincing. So you add it all up, and there's been such a gap between them. They are the ultimate measuring stick of what Marlins want to build for themselves. Yeah. Hopefully this setting does something to rejuvenate Adam Duvall, because you could say he's been one of the weak links so far this year. I put out the numbers before that. We played really well with the Braves the last couple of years, as Marlins fans know from experience. but especially playing in this ballpark for whatever reason. Even right before he was signed by the Braves, that he likes this ballpark for whatever it's worth. 500 career slugging percentage when he plays here, and when he's a guy that, because he has his struggles getting on base, he needs to be a big slugger to justify an everyday player role or even anything close to that. If they can summon that version of him in this series, it'd be pretty great. But his most recent at bat, I guess, was that pinch hit double that he had in the Mets series. That was encouraging to see, that he did something in that situation. And he's someone that, I mean, we've gone back and forth about how much he should be playing, understanding that they just signed him and he was really their biggest offseason acquisition. And yet you need to be realistic about his limitations, and you need to be you need to do an honest comparison between him and someone like Garrett Cooper, because on most days when one of them is in the lineup, one of them is not in the lineup. And today is an exception, though, where they're get both of them lineup, and at the expense of Aguilar. And I think this is only the first or second time all year that Aguilar isn't starting because of that. That's going to be continue to be a big theme of this season, is how they juggle those guys along with Corey Dickerson. It's 4 guys for 3 spots, and there's only so many times that we can say it. I guess at this point, Aguilar and Dickerson are the 2 of those that have been closest to their usual self. I think, was it Ethan that you mentioned it, or was it somebody else that had this take that you didn't like Cooper's at bats?
Yeah, that was me. I was just gonna get into this. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna get into this. Yeah, I to be honest, Cooper's a weird one for me, right? Because his numbers are really good, but we haven't seen him really. He hasn't played 162 games over 3 seasons. So combined, right? So he hasn't just not played a full season. He hasn't played 162 games combined over 3 seasons. So he worries me a little bit. I'm not sure how good this guy is. He hits the ball hard. He's got really good numbers, and he had a great spring. So that's why it's been so surprising to me that he has been struggling out of the gate so far. He was really fantastic in the spring this year, but I just haven't liked his ABs that much. And maybe it's because he's, he hasn't really gotten a rhythm. Duvall certainly hasn't gotten a rhythm. This was something that Mattingly was asked about in the press conference. They were covering all the topics that Donnie was talking about in the press conference today. But anyway, it seems like neither guy has really found their rhythm yet. It's kind of hard for any of these guys to find their rhythm. I think Aggie's had good ABs, and Dickerson's ABs has certainly been getting better. And tomorrow, with the lefty going, I would certainly expect that you would see all 3 righties tomorrow. And Dickerson would be the odd man out tomorrow. But I just haven't really been overly impressed, right? It's not like he isn't hitting very well and has been having good ABs, like a guy like Brian Anderson. I really like Brian Anderson's ABs at points. Dickerson even hasn't been hitting great, but I've liked his ABs a lot. Jazz is only hitting 200, but I've liked his ABs a lot. I just haven't seen it from Cooper. I just haven't seen him really, work great counts, have an AB. There's been a couple, certainly, there was one walk he took, I remember, and he's hit the ball hard at times, but, only 87 weighted runs created plus so far. He's hitting 150, slugging 350. He's got that home run that he went down and golfed from the in the Rays series. But I just, everybody's been clamoring for him. He's the guy that needs to be in there every day, but he hasn't truly shown, to me at least, that he does deserve to play every day, because in the regular season so far, I haven't been overly impressed with his at-bats. So maybe he takes it, maybe it's just a slow start. There are a bunch of guys off to slow starts right now. And he, over the course of his seasons that he's played, he's been, above average, pretty well above average. So we'll see. But right now, I'm not, saying that he has to be in the lineup every day, because he hasn't shown me, and neither has Duvall. So it's kind of like, there's these 4 guys for 3 spots, but 2 of them haven't really proven, to me at least, that they deserve an everyday shot.
Yeah. You see a little bit of both, I think, from Garrett Cooper for me personally. I just looked at StatCast metrics. You like a couple things. Obviously, it's a small sample, right? Just started the season. He's only got a couple of bats in, not much. But Max exit velocity, he's in the 72nd percentile. He does have 4 walks, so he's in the 85th percentile and based on balls percentage. And he's actually not swinging and missing as much as we're used to seeing him do. He's in the 62nd percentile in whiff percentage. So, I mean, I look at that, and I think the guy's having good at-bats. Look at Adam Duvall's metrics here, Ethan. Maximum exit velocity,
no, they're brutal.
Percentile.
They're brutal. Yeah.
K percentage, 15th percentile. Based on balls percentage, 24th percentile. Hard hit percentage from Adam Duvall, a guy that you brought in to give you one thing. The Marlins brought him in for one reason, to hit for power. He's in the 8th percentile in hard hit percentage. Just terrible. He's a one-tool player, power or nothing. I mean, I know the Marlins did need that big power bat, but he just doesn't deserve to play right now. I don't see, especially with a short bench, he's a one-tool player. He plays one spot. I think it's a mistake to put him in right field with his arm and his routes. He's a left fielder who only hits for power, and he's not hitting for power. I don't care if it's a small sample size. He doesn't deserve to play. I cannot see going with him over Garrett Cooper.
The problem is that, yes, Duvall hasn't been very good, and he's certainly been a disappointment so far, but like Cooper hasn't been great either. So it's kind of like, where do you go here, right? I mean, he's K'ing at a 37.5% rate so far. He's taking a lot of walks, which is good. His walks are up at 16.7%, and it's obviously a small sample size, but he's like average exit velocity 19th percentile. Like, he's not hitting the ball that hard. He hits the ball hard. When he hits it hard, it's hard, but he's not doing it very often is the problem right now. So 24th in expected 24th percentile in expected slugging, 31st percentile in expected weighted on base average. So yeah, neither guy has been great. So it's kind of this conundrum of trying to get one guy in rhythm so that one guy starts playing a lot better. But
sure,
which guy do you go with every day? Because neither of them have really been any good. So whereas we thought it was a kind of an embarrassment, not an embarrassment of riches, but a good problem to have where they had 4 guys for 3 spots. Right now, it's a bad problem to have because 2 of them aren't playing very well. And Blade eventually, he could be a very solid. Eventually, he could be, if they move on from Cooper Aguilar and then they say, we're going to play this guy every day over Duvall, that's down the road for sure. But we talked about this on Earning Their Stripes, I think, Eli, right? That's legitimate that if the Marlins feel they need to upgrade in the outfield and they think Blade is an upgrade, which at this point, he might be. I would like to see him obviously get some ABs in the minors first, but they're going to put out the team that they feel gives them the best chance to win. And if they feel Blade gives them a better chance to win than Cooper and Duvall, then yeah, they're going to do that.
I'd like to hear your opinion, Eli. We gave you ours on Cooper versus Duvall because I think that's the hot topic right now, right? Is which one of these guys plays. So, I mean, I know what Ethan is saying. Neither one of these guys has been like, wow, we got to play him. Like, neither one has been that guy. But I just think when you look at both side by side, I know spring training is spring training, but Cooper had a great spring training.
He did.
He seems to be a bit more confident. I know Ethan loves that he was wearing the high socks. So, you look at all that stuff, it seems like he's kind of putting it together. You want to think like this can be his breakthrough to consistently hit for power, which I think that he can. I just think that he's on the precipice of doing so, and Duvall has just been awful. So I want to get your opinion.
I would definitely be playing Cooper more often than Duvall for sure. They do have some overlapping skill sets, but also a lot of stuff that simply favors Cooper.
Yeah,
I do think he's a more well-rounded hitter than Duvall is. Duvall has what struck out to me about Duvall when they signed him, and he actually mentioned this in the pregame today during the availability, is how he's so focused on barreling the ball. Yeah. And you look at his history, and that's the one thing he does do well. He barrels the ball at an extremely high rate, and when you usually barrel the ball, that's often a home run. It's not a big extra base hit, and there's some value in that. Especially, it's ideal if you're a pinch hitter. For example, that if you're coming up to a pinch hit in a big spot and you only have that one opportunity to do something and your team is trailing, or when there's so much pressure on that one situation, then it's great to have a guy that gives you that upside where he can barrel just about anybody. And even in recent seasons, his platoon splits have been pretty encouraging. Like, he's a guy that at other points early in his career, you weren't so sure whether you'd want to play him against righties. That stuff evened out when he was with the Braves. So he's a guy that would be a great pinch hitting option. someone that obviously will have you could use every single day in some role, whether as a starter or as a pinch hitter. But yeah, to me, I would use Cooper as a starter more often. I understand the concerns. We haven't brought this up, but it's been mentioned plenty of times that the concerns the team might have about Cooper's ability to stay healthy while playing the outfield.
Yeah.
Where he's someone that I don't think people realize this. He's almost as big as Giancarlo Stanton. He's almost that
huge.
Kind of size.
Yeah,
he's huge. And the track record of those guys at that size playing the outfield and staying healthy, it's a bad track record. And that's not really in his control. That's just the reality of the way baseball is played at that position. All the grounds you have to cover, and when you have to make collisions with a wall, or there's just so many opportunities for you to take a wrong step out there because of all the grounds you have to cover when a ball is in play. For that reason, they don't see him as an everyday right fielder, even if they want to play him a lot. And they obviously can't put him at first base every day because Aguilar has just been so consistently good at hitting since he came to the team last year. He was so consistent last year. He was good in spring training. And early on this year, Aguilar is continuing to be great. Someone that, aside from hitting to all fields and understanding the situation, that his contact skills are almost as good as anybody on the team. So there's only so much playing time that you could take away from him in favor of Cooper. Yeah,
I have a few things just to follow up on, Eli, from you. I'm not necessarily saying that Duvall should start over Cooper. I'm saying that I don't know which one right now because neither have been very good. The signs are certainly more encouraging for Cooper, so I guess roll with him. But I just don't know. I mean, the other thing is you mentioned Duvall as a pinch hitter. So far, he's got 2 pinch hits, home run, and a double. So
right.
you're seeing the power when he pinch hits in that spot. So that's not necessarily, that's certainly an encouraging sign. And the other thing is we really sleep on how good Aguilar's been. And, the fact is he's the guy that has shown he should be playing every day because I loved his ABs this year. He was great in spring. He was great last year. Just kind of a guy that just kind of got back to what he was doing well when he was doing it well in Milwaukee. And I really like his approach at the plate right now. So that's a guy that's kind of taken it by the horns. And like I said, I've liked Dickerson a lot better at the top of the lineup recently, but it's all going to work out. But the problem is that it would be a lot easier if you could just play all 4 of them because there was a DH. And so you could get every guy into rhythm. But right now, every guy can't get in, neither the Duvall and Cooper, neither of them can really get into a rhythm because they're in and out. And this is going to be a storyline all year. All year, it's going to be a storyline about what to do with these guys, how to play them, how to get them in the rhythm, which one is doing better than the other one. They're certainly going to be compared all year. They're going to be pushed up against each other all year. So, and then on Brinson, he has to stay down for 10 days because of the option. That's the immediate future for him.
Yeah, I wanted to cut in. This is something I mentioned on the website that I don't know if people realize it, but he is, at this stage of his career, he's pre-arbitration eligible. And in almost all those cases, players in that situation, they have a split contract where you're on the major league roster, you earn your major league salary while you're up there, like a prorated portion of it every single day that you're on the active roster. You get sent down, and that pay drops precipitously. You get a small fraction of that while you're in the minors. So I'm not familiar with exactly what the terms of his contract are. It's still a living wage if you're on the 40-man roster, which he is, but he is losing thousands of dollars a day that he spends technically being on the taxi squad in the alternate training site in the fish tank compared to being on the active roster. And so I just mentioned that on the website because Craig Mish put out a tweet yesterday when the game got postponed about how the Marlins were kind of getting screwed in this situation. And just to be polite, to put it gently, Brinson is not playing. He doesn't have a role really on this active roster at the moment. And in his very limited sample, he wasn't playing well. I don't think this really hurts the Marlins competitively. If anybody is the victim of how that game was handled yesterday, I think it's Brinson, simply because he's losing out on money. And if that game had been canned in advance and they didn't make a roster move, he would be at least on the bench as a major leaguer for these next few days until they needed Daniel Castano to hop into the rotation, which seems to be the plan, where Castano is now hanging around as an emergency long reliever. I guess there's a decent chance he could pitch in this series, but he's more so just being held until Friday, where it seems that's when the rotation spot will come up again. So I feel for Brinson in that situation. I don't think that was out of his control. Out of his control. I imagine he's still traveling with the team and he's still on the taxi squad. And who knows, maybe an injury will pop up. That's the situation where you could come up in less than 10 days. If somebody else gets injured, you can be a replacement for them called up then. It's a rough spot for him for sure.
And the idea of a split contract is so ridiculous. That the whole system, we can do a whole live stream about this, but the whole system needs to be revamped. That is ridiculous.
Well, let's just say this. We know, I know you guys know what these guys make coming up as minor leaguers, right? Then they get to the major leagues and it's their payday. They're finally going to make sustainable money. But then something like this happens and you're just basically, I don't know the exact dollar figures, but probably not far away from a AAA salary playing for the alternate training side. I would imagine. So, it's an unfortunate situation for Brinson, because if the Mets would have just said, okay, we're not playing, he would still be here.
He'd still be here, certainly.
Yeah, and now he's got to wait 10 days. I mean, yes, Eli said if somebody goes to the IL, he can come back. But, yeah, it sucks for him. And I guess it's kind of just a cherry on top of disappointing career, not only for fans, but you got to look at it from his perspective. This is a guy who's used to succeeding. He's used to being good. He's used to hitting the ball, and he just hasn't been able to do it in his major league career. And now this is happening. So loses a season, and now this is happening. So, it sucks for him.
I feel for the guy.
It hurts me for sure.
It's brutal for the guy.
Yeah, that's basically all we can say.
Yeah. In the meantime, they're operating with a short bench, which is, I guess every manager says it, that they don't like having a short bench of position players. But Mattingly is someone that always does it, like year in, year out. He likes to have 13 position players if possible. And in the meantime, the way that the roster is constructed, don't really need it. It's because of all the outfielders they have and their long track records. And there's just not many starts to go around. I noticed that actually, Magneuris Sierra is playing even less than Brinson was because of this logjam that they have in the outfield. And somebody on our website mentioned about the possibility of Sierra being squeezed out in the near future, because this is a guy that's a big advocate of Brian Miller based on the spring training that Brian Miller had. And at least Miller is a guy with a little bit more of a upside with the bat and some other familiar skills to go along with that. I don't think that a change is coming anytime soon, just because they were really happy with what Sierra did last season. And
he's out of options.
Right. That was the thing, where the suggestion that this reader made was that they simply cut ties with Sierra now, that he is what he's going to be, and that they thought this next wave of outfielders, whether it's Brian Miller or somebody else down there, someone like Monte, would be a better fit. And we'll see. I don't see a change coming quite yet, just because of what Mags did last year. And it's
very valuable.
It's a tricky situation, because he's not going to get any sort of consistent playing time unless one of these other veterans get injured. So you can't really change your evaluation on him. And but in the meantime, it's a weird fit for the roster, because he's never hitting. You never get to actually see him at the plate under any circumstances.
I think something has to change there, personally, because he's out of options. You can't send him down without DFAing him and making him available to other teams, right? We know that. Then he's not playing. So how can other teams get a look at him if you are going to try to flip him, right? We do have these other pieces down in the minors, and I am a huge advocate for Brian Miller. And I'll say this again, he beat Magneuris Sierra in a foot race before a spring training game. So there you go. He is as fast, I think, as Magneuris Sierra. So if you're looking at Mags and saying, well, the speed, blah, 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 Brian Miller, man, I think he's the same kind of guy, same kind of piece. He could play all three outfield spots, quick little bat, fast as hell. So, yeah, I asked this to you guys. I asked this actually to Aram Layton and to Daniel DeVivo on a show that I did on this same platform not too long ago. I don't know what the guy has to do, being Brian Miller, to get a chance with Marlins, because he's Rule 5 eligible this coming year, and he's part of the first round of cuts this spring. Like, I just didn't get it. I mean, maybe they just don't like him, but they like Magneuris Sierra, but they don't like Brian Miller, and they're the same kind of player. So, it's kind of weird, a situation for him. He's a grinder. I really like Brian. But anyways, I'm going on. The situation with Mags, one thing or another has to happen. You're either going to have to give him playing time so that other teams can look at him and say, okay, we want him, and gain some interest in him. Because right now, I don't think there's any interest. And I think at the end of this year, he's just going to walk. So can you get something of value for Magneuris Sierra? Maybe, but I think other teams need to see him play. So I think he should be a primary piece coming off the bench, especially on a short bench, right? So
right. Well, the thing is, like, you don't want to just let that guy go because there is value in his skill set. So yeah, it's always been a sticky situation what to do with him, which is why he's on the major league roster this year, because you don't, he's out of options. You don't want to lose him. He can provide, legs in a big spot, but the Marlins haven't had many big spots where they need a ton of legs so far. So, it's tough, but I would think that Miller eventually is going to get his shot sometime this year. He was playing a lot in spring training. So,
the one topic I wanted to touch on, but before getting out of here, was our general feel for where the Braves are in this NL East hierarchy. Because honestly, all these teams have been kind of inconsistent out of the gate. I mean, the Phillies they got off to a relatively hot start, and then they got beat up a little bit in this series against the Braves. We saw the Mets and the Nationals have barely gotten to play at all because of the Nationals' COVID situation and because of the rain in New York. It was my opinion that the Braves were the team to beat in this division, being that they won it the past couple times. They've returned most of their core players. The talent is off the charts, and they seemingly have some wiggle room to even add more money during the season to make any necessary upgrades, sensing that this is their window, that this is their time, and they have to seize it. On the other hand, there have been some interesting counter opinions to that. Of course, PECOTA made quite a bit of news from Baseball Prospectus when I think they projected the Braves to finish fourth in the division and be right around 500. It was a similar situation that the Cubs were in a couple of years ago. The Cubs were the team to beat.
And we didn't make the playoffs, but we did win 80. We did surpass 79 wins. So,
right. Of course, the Mets made a lot of moves to improve this offseason, and the Phillies, they brought the gang back together and they reshuffled their bullpen. And the Nationals, big wild card because they just won a World Series and they have some familiar faces, but they're a team that's very top heavy in terms of talent. So far this year, we played the Mets only twice because of the rain out, and we haven't played any of the other teams in the division. So to me, this is what I've been telling our audience, is that it's kind of dumb to reach any sweeping conclusions about the Marlins until probably the end of the month, just because they're not playing their rival teams yet. They finally played this series against the Braves, and at the very end of the month, I'll have to double check. I think it's the Nationals that they finally play at the end of the month. So that gives you a better idea of where they are. At this stage of the year, without these head-to-head interactions, how do you have them stacked up?
I'll go first on this one, and I'll just say I've been saying this with I watch a lot of soccer with the Champions League. Okay, Bayern Munich just won the Champions League last year, and everybody's really excited about Man City because they're been the best team in the world this year. But anyway, I've said until somebody beats Bayern, they're the favorite. Until somebody beats the Braves in the division, they're the favorite in the division. That's it. They've run the division for the past few years, and until somebody unseats them, they're how you measure up. Okay, so I picked the Braves to win the division before the year. Well, if I did predictions, I didn't do any predictions, but they would be my favorite for sure. They have probably the most talent. They've got the best pitching staff. They've got that guy that we're staring at right there in Acuna. Albies is great. They've got so much talent. And like I said, they've been there before. They've done it, right? The quote from Mattingly today was, the Braves let us know where we were at in 2020. They beat the Marlins pretty good, okay, in that postseason, and they beat them really good. They beat them up really good in the regular season as well. So this is the measuring stick. This is who you go up against, and you say, where are we at? This is a really good time for the Marlins to evaluate where we're at, how they're feeling about the team. They say they're feeling good, and I believe them. They look like they're feeling good. They look like they're still pretty confident despite the slow start to the year. This is a great time for them to look at themselves in the mirror, go right up against their biggest rival, and say, it'll be 12 games into the season by the time this series finishes. 12 games in the season. Where are we at? What are we looking at here? What are we looking at for 162 games? And how do we measure up? If they're competitive in every game, then that's a really good sign for the Marlins in terms of what's ahead for this year. But if they get blown out and they squeak out a win, maybe they squeak out 2 wins, but they get blown out in the other 2, then you're looking at this. You're not really anywhere past where you were last year. So huge measuring stick. they're the favorite until somebody beats them, and that's it. That's how I see it in my eyes. It's really simple.
Yeah. So here's what it is on the Braves. The Braves are definitely, agree with Ethan, far and away the class of the division. The reason why, they have so much talent right now. This minor league talent that they built, and then of course veterans that they brought in. But you look at the minor league talent that they've built up. Christian Pache, he's here this year. Kyle Wright, he just graduated as a prospect. Ian Anderson. They have all these guys that they built within the organization, and then they also have other guys that they brought in around it. So I think that this Braves team, the look and the point in where they are right now in the organization, this is where the Marlins should be within the next 2 years, right? Yeah. With the prospect graduations. And then you hope that they have the money and the funds to bring in those veterans, maybe re-sign Starling Marte to build around that core of prospects. I think that's what the Braves did. Their system beyond these guys that they have here, of course, I mentioned Kyle Wright graduating, right? Pache, I think, will graduate this year. Ian Anderson will graduate this year as well. Beyond those like main four guys, I think they have one or two other prospects in the top 100 on pipeline. I think Shea Langeliers is one of them. But yeah, outside of those guys, their system is okay, but not great, right? So I think it's 15th per pipeline. So it's okay, but it's not great. So they want to win right now. Their prospects are here. They have the veterans around them. That's why they're so good. The pitching's ridiculous. So yeah, that's the class of the division. You look beyond them. Of course, we know the Marlins system and what they're doing. And then you look at the Phillies and Nationals, just in terms of their minor league systems, horrible. Their minor league systems are just terrible. Those Phillies, I think, are 23rd, and the Nationals, I'm just looking at it now. The Nationals, yes, dead last in baseball in terms of their minor league system with top prospects. So yeah, you look at it from a depth standpoint, Braves, the Marlins hopefully can be the Braves in the next year or two. And then the Phillies and Nationals, I think they're going to have to eventually either, rebuild or at least make some big signings to build around what they have already. So yeah, that's where it is for me. I think the Braves just carry the division again this year, unfortunately, but I think that's where we're at.
One last point is that we talked about with the Rays, how the Rays could be a blueprint for the Marlins. Yep. This Atlanta is the blueprint.
That's it for me. Exactly.
That's the blueprint. They have a superstar that the Rays are missing. They have the superstar. They've got the talent. They've got the veteran talent around. They spent money at holes that they needed a power bat, so they kept Ozuna. They spent money where they needed. They got a veteran starter in Morton. They spent money where they needed it, and most of this was in-house and done through the farm. And yeah, this is the blueprint, and this is the class of the division. This is the measuring stick. So Agreed. 2 minutes till first pitch. So we'll see how the Marlins measure up.
Yeah, and the Braves don't have a hole in the wall ballpark the way that the Rays do.
They have a beautul park. This new park is awesome.
Yeah, I gotta head up there.
Yeah, we're gonna cut it here. I'm going to from Fish Stripes Live. I have 1 minute to eat my dinner and then get set to watch the game and cover it. Ethan Badowski, Alex Carver, Eli Sussman here. Fish Stripes Live. We'll continue to refine this thing and get these streams even more entertaining and engaging. We appreciate all the support. Go Fish.